Sacrifice and service are two words that those on teams and the military use often, but with drastically different meanings. No matter the arena, the group that understands the severity and calling of those words will be in a position to succeed. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Win, a show where we ask questions to uncover and discover their championship traits for succeeding in sports, work, and life. Win is part of Grit, a pivotalmomentsmedia.com channel focused on breaking the stigma surrounding mental fitness in sports. Visit pivotalmomentsmedia.com for more episodes, content, and education on how we can tackle that challenge together. Our guest today, Brad Thomas, is the founder, songwriter, and lead guitarist for Silence and Light, an all-veteran band that brings mental health awareness through music. Brad is also a former Army Ranger and Delta Force operator, having spent over 20 years in the service. And while Silence and Light has attracted Grammy Award-winning producers and quite the fan base, the band has embraced the higher mission of giving back by donating the royalties to special operations, veterans, and first responder charitable organizations. He is the first guest we've had on the show that we can say is both a rock star and a member of the Tier 1 Special Operations. Brad, welcome to Win. It's great to have you on the show.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Brad, great to have you on the show. Man, I haven't seen you forever, probably, I don't know, long time, 25 years, probably something like that. Brad, let's get right into it. You know, you served 2 decades in the military in special operations. You know, you're a musician, you're an inventor, you have several patents, yet you participated in some of the most intense military battles in recent history. I like to say, you know, you're Rambo with this Clark Kent quiet demeanor. You know, how'd this originate, from your upbringing or just who you are? So let's dive into that.
I don't know. I think I think for a large part of my time in the service, I didn't necessarily fit in with all of that crowd either. So I think my creative side was something that it helped me and both hindered me in the service. And, you know, it was something where I was looking for this camaraderie. It's one of the reasons that I joined, and looking for, you know, that feeling of being on a close knit team and with a group of guys that you're willing to hang it out there with and things like that. That appealed to me, just like being in a band. You're creating a brotherhood. I mean, it's relationships, it's strong, tight relationships. And I don't know. I think, like I said, it's a creative thing. And I think it's something that you're born with, and you're either that way or you're not that way. It's like there are music people and there are not music people. Some people listen to a song and it can make them tear up and they're right back in 1983 again. Or, you know, for somebody else, it might be a smell, but I'm definitely a music person, creative person. And, you know, like I said, definitely a help and a hindrance during my time in the service.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with you there, because, you know, sometimes in the military, being in the Ranger Regiment, then you went on, you know, sometimes it's fitting in that box. And there were times I felt I didn't fit quite in that box. You know, I was this kid from Pittsburgh. You know, a lot of the Ranger Regiment was NASCAR Nation back in the day. And so, you know, I wasn't really part of that. But I think that's really important, that you continue to have 2 things. And I think it's important for people listening to this to understand, is that you had curiosity and creativity. And you will always want to keep that, because that keeps your mind healthy. So go ahead.
There's a third thing.
Go ahead.
The third thing is the desire to never be stagnant and to continue to challenge myself. So great. I say this on everything that I do, whatever media I'm on. If I could talk about what I really wanted to talk about today, it would not be about the military. It wouldn't be about what I did, you know, 29 years ago in Mogadishu. It wouldn't be about what I did 3 days ago. It's about what I'm doing today, right now, and maybe the things I'm doing tomorrow. I remember getting to the unit, and I don't want to jump ahead. Maybe you guys have some of these questions or things lined up for later, but I remember getting to the unit and it was like going to work at Disneyland. I'm never going to leave this place. This is the greatest place on earth. It's got every piece of equipment you could ever imagine. You can do anything. If you can cook it up, we need to build a skyscraper so we can, you know, climb on glass or figure out how to do something. Like, you can make it happen there. It's an incredible place. And after being there about 5 years, I was like, I am done. I need to do something. I have to challenge myself in another way. It's just a cycle. And, you know, with the military, it's I'm sure it's the same in the NFL. I'm sure it's the same in, any pro sports thing. It's all right, off season, preseason, postseason, season, it's very cyclical. And I don't necessarily work well in that environment.
Brad, one of the things I'll tell you, we're privileged here, JB and I, to interview a lot of trailblazers, high performers, champions. And, we say that success leaves clues.
And then me, the knucklehead.
No, here's the thing. I'm grouping you in with them. And I'll tell you why.
Exactly.
Because first off, hey, knuckleheads change the world, right? Look, here's the deal is that success leaves clues. And one of the things we like to do on this show is we never wanted to do just athletes, because the things that are similar amongst high achievers are similar, such as, like JB said, creativity, desire to do stuff, challenging yourself. These are the things that make people great. And I want to say this too, some people don't have those abilities. That doesn't make them any less or anything like that. It's just a different way of living. But if you really want to achieve something, if you really want to do something, those are the qualities that I find everyone shares. Again, we had Johnny Spizo on not too long ago, who was incredibly accomplished in the medical field. And I'm talking to her just like I was talking to Mark Rippon, Super Bowl MVP. They're the same to me, right? In the sense of how they found their accomplishment. Now, Brad, my next question for you, I was researching you obviously before the show. Always had a love for music. You wanted to be in rock your whole life. And then there was a pivotal moment. That's the name of our parent channel, where you decided to join the service, which I don't want to dive so much into the why behind that. But what I love is that after your time in the service, you pivoted back to the thing that you love, and you found a way to merge these two things together. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how Silence and Light came to be? And the way I led this question is how you found success so fast, because it seems like right away, first album, first EP, you guys are right there. You got producers looking at you. What is the secret sauce, or what is the team dynamic, or what is it about you and the group that you're with and what you've learned that has made Silence and Light come to where they're at right now?
I think, something that I learned in the Rangers, and I recently, I don't know, within the last few months, I made a post about this very thing. And when I was in the Rangers and first arrived at the Rangers, and I had a different vision for what I thought that was going to be. And I didn't necessarily appreciate it at the time, but shining my boots and blackening my boot eyelets and making sure my uniform was starched and everything, and the hallway is buffed, and the brasso on the doorknobs is gold, and you name it. That wasn't why I joined, the Rangers and wanted to be at the Rangers, right? And it wasn't until, recently, and I kind of discovered it when I made this post. It taught me that I have to be 110% on everything that I do, not just the thing that I want to do or I like to do, but everything. And that's the only way you're really going to be successful. So I didn't appreciate it at the time. I thought it was dumb. I didn't think it was going to help me in combat. I still don't know that it necessarily correlates to, this is going to make you successful on the field of battle, but it definitely taught me that everything that I do, whether it's buffing the hallway, cleaning the latrine, shooting a machine gun, whatever it is, I'm putting 110% into it. So I feel like that's something, pivoting to the band thing. I'm the same way. I don't half-ass something. So if I'm in, I'm all in, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And that's because of the things that I learned and, the way I was kind of raised to be. So, with the band, I think we have a great message, and we're contributing, profits from our music royalties to charitable organizations that help veterans and first responders. I think it's a very honest and pure mission. It's, altruistic. People see through fake. I'm not doing this, to put myself out there, other than to say, I've been there, I've done the dark stuff, and seen bad stuff and had a lot of trauma. And if I can figure out a way to do something healthy, positive, and creative and give back to the community, it's given me a tremendous sense of purpose. And a lot of folks are looking for that. So that's why I'm out there doing it. So that's kind of where the impetus for the band came from.
Well, look, I'll tell you real quick. that you said it a little bit earlier. First off, it's an incredibly noble undertaking that you're doing here. But you said about doing those little things, and you said you don't know if that leads to success on the field of battle. Now, I can't speak to that militarily, but I'll tell you right now, absolutely in sport, when we talk about this with young athletes or pro athletes, if you want to be an ultimate competitor, you have to stay competitive almost all the time, and you have to continually practice it. You also have to continually practice being present. And you said this earlier too in the show that, you know, it's about today, it's about right now. The best athletes have a enhanced grip on that. I think that's another reason why you succeed with your music, is because of your training, obviously, but you said it's an all the time thing. And I think that's something that JB and I say to athletes all the time is you don't just show up at the game and you got it. You have to be doing these things all the time. Some of the hardest workouts I've ever seen have been pro athletes before a game. Before the game, Michael Jordan used to work out before games, right? Yeah. It's because they don't shut it off, right? Yeah. And I think I just wanted to say that and compliment you on that and say that, you know, that's a big misnomer for people. There is no shutting it off. If you want to be great, you're doing it all the time.
It's interesting. I had the fortune of getting to meet and become good friends with the actor Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
And he and I were, you know, it was kind of a group of people, and there was this magnetism thing that happened. And I'm not comparing myself to him in terms of fame, but in terms of performing at the highest level and being at the high, you know, I'm here in the military at the highest level performing, and that's kind of my drive. He and I had so much in common. And, you know, everybody else in the room was kind of like, man, you're not like me. You're not like me. And it's not looking down or talking down or thinking less of. There was just a drive that we both had, and it was magnet, you know, literally like a magnet. And, you know, every week since then, and I think this is probably 5 or 6 years ago, I mean, we text all the time. We hang out when we can. I got invited out to LA to go to his opening of a new club that he opened out there. And he's a great human being.
That's awesome. Yeah. Like-minded people find each other. I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah. Give him thumbs down on that Venom movie though. But other than that, no, I'm just kidding.
I was with him when that movie came out, and the very first, so it opened, I think it opened on a Thursday night, and I was with him that night and through that weekend. And we were doing a special event, kind of like a USO thing, but private, for special operations folks at Fort Bragg and a couple of different military installations. And he paid out of his pocket to do it. Wow. And he sat, you know, there were probably 700 people at each different event, and he stood, took pictures, talked with everybody, you know, for hours and hours afterwards, just very appreciative. He's a super patriot, even though he's a Brit, but you know, he's a patriot, and
that's great.
Very supportive of that. So
that's great.
And
That's
JB,
awesome.
I disagree with you. I think Venom was actually the only good character in the movie. I think it was a great character in a bad film. Yeah. The movie was bad. The character was good. That's what I'm going to say.
Brad, you know, like me, you grew up in the Ranger Regiment, and then you went on to the, you know, Ranger Reconnaissance Detachment, which is that elite group, and then on to Delta. And you know, there's something about, and you talked a little bit about, there's something about being a young man in the Rangers that only you can understand if you experience it. I mean, I look back even to my times, and I'm like, how in the hell did I even make it? Like, how did I make it? You know, back then I went through what was called RIP, and, you know, I think it was RIP when you went through too, and whatever they call it now. But how in the hell do we even make that part? And but can you just walk us through that journey, that initial path, and then you coming into the Rangers and 3rd Ranger Battalion? And Brad, I don't know if you know this, but you probably do. But you know, before you went to Mogadishu, you were in Bravo 375. I was in Bravo 175, and we were actually, both companies were in Texas at the same time.
Oh, no joke.
We were in companies at the same time, and I remember seeing like. I was a platoon sergeant, and seeing a platoon sergeant from 375 that I knew. I think it was actually Merritt. And I was like, dude, what are you guys doing? He's like, we're going to Somalia. I'm like, you're not going to Somalia. We're going to Somalia. He's like, nope. He's like, nope, it got changed. And there was 2 Ranger companies there, two two lieutenant colonels, and all of a sudden it got changed and we went back to Hunter and you guys went. So I don't know, it was kind of is what it is, I guess.
I think I told you this, and I can't get into a ton of the details, but and I don't have the desire to be a podcast host. It's not, I don't want to start, but I've got a project that I'm working on that's all of the kind of backstory and human interest parts of Mogadishu. It's not going to be a war story. There I was killing dudes on the street corner. It's not that. It's all of the human stuff. And 30 years later, here's kind of the aftermath of all of it. And even as recently as the awards upgrade ceremony, I'm talking with Matt Eversman, who will be one of the first guests on this project. And most people don't know this, but Matt Eversman, he was the main Ranger character in the movie.
Sure.
He never went out into battle a second time, so he came back, and then he never went back out. But Hollywood turned him into the main character, and he, to this day, has a tremendous sense of guilt over that. Makes it difficult for him to show up at anniversaries and engagements and things like that, because it's like, oh, there's the guy that didn't do what he did in the movie. And imagine being asked, everything you do is, hey, what happened here? Well, I wasn't there, I didn't do that. Anyway, Matt was telling me everybody was contacting him that he knew that he was there, and it was, well, are you getting upgraded? No. And so he's, at 55 years of age, feels ashamed because he wasn't upgraded and has to tell people no. So is it like you didn't do something special, or you know what I mean? It just causes all this stuff. So anyway, the project is really kind of talking about those types of things. And I feel like, this was something that happened 29 years ago. Next year, it'll be 30 years. And it's still having an effect on people. And the lesson to that is, we're just kind of wrapping up a 21-year war in the Middle East. And there are going to be a whole lot of people, there were only like 120 dudes on the ground in Mogadishu. You've got millions of people that have served during the GWAT. So I want to be a lesson to them, to show them, hey, this is some of the stuff you can expect, and you're not alone. We've all been there. We're still there. So anyway, I totally didn't answer your question. And
no, it's okay.
I'm trying to remember what the question was.
No, it was just, I just felt like, there's an experience of growing up in the Ranger Regiment, especially as a young man, going there early. I was 18 when I started. You were young when you started. And it was, for me, some of the days was like being on Mars. Like I was just trying to keep up. and then all of a sudden, maybe you figure out you're a little bit good at this and move on. But I think it for me, it helped shape me.
So I originally, I think you were asking about kind of like my start there and everything else. And I have kind of an oddball story, but there was a trifecta. So you were talking about like what led you down this path. You were talking a little bit more about, what led me down this path with the band. But in terms of the military, there was like a trifecta of things that happened all in kind of December of 1989 into, maybe January or February of 1990. And I was playing music, and the band that I was in just kind of fell apart. And, it takes a long time to build material. It takes a long time to gather the right people. So you got this guy, but then he's out, and then you got another guy, and it takes 6 months to find him. And it's like being married to, 3 or 4 other dudes. And it's a challenge. So the band I was in kind of fell apart. The second thing that happened was the Rangers jumped into Panama. And I remember being at one of my bandmates' houses, and we were writing some music and things like that, and seeing some of the footage on TV. And I don't remember whether it was cable news or whatever, but it kind of like got the spidey senses tingling, like, ooh, that's cool, And the third thing that happened, what the hell was it? A buddy of mine joined the Air Force and was home for like Christmas vacation, Christmas exodus. He just finished AIT. And he was the only person that I knew that was in the service. And he told me at the end of his basic training that there were some guys that came around from a special unit that like jumped in behind enemy lines to rescue down pilots. And, you know, he didn't want to do that. He went EOD, but, you know, was telling me about that. And so that kind of got the spidey senses tingling too. So within a couple of weeks, I went and started talking with the Air Force recruiter. And the only reason I went to the Air Force was because my buddy was in the Air Force. So the Air Force guy gave me the runaround for a while and was telling me straight up lies. And I ended up leaving there one day, and the Army guy pulled me aside and he goes, "Hey man, what's going on? I see you here like every week talking with this guy. What the hell is going on?" And I said, "Well, he won't guarantee me, you know, what I want to do." And he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know, like Delta Force." And the dude was like, "Yeah, get the fuck out of here, you know? You got to be something before that, like Special Forces." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And he goes, "Well, you can't do that either. You got to be something before that, like a Ranger." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." He said, "I can get you a contract for that today." And that's kind of how I went, you know, Ranger path versus anything else. It was almost out of luck, you know.
I love it. I love it. It makes great. And the other thing you said before this, you talked a little bit about combat and the stress and everything else. And I just want everybody, and I say this to a lot of people, Brad, you know, there's a lot of us that, you know, we're fortunate to launch bullets, but a lot of people don't. But combat changes everybody. I don't care if you were, you know, you were in the back, you know, issuing out MREs, or, you know, you were, you know, landing on the X. Combat changes everybody. And I think everybody needs to understand that as you're right, we go forward for, you know, 21 years of servicemen and women that have served in, you know, the global war on terrorism. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I try and give a shout out to all the men and women behind the scenes that make stuff happen. And
100%.
You know the same thing from pro sports, right? Like you don't see the coaches, you don't see the personal trainers, you don't see all the medical staff and all of the stuff that goes,
the equipment guys, yeah, everything.
An hour of football on Sunday, you know, or you see 3 periods of hockey, whatever it might be. And very much the same way with the military. And I feel like, you know, of course it's exciting and it's something that's easy for Hollywood to glorify, you know, this battle or whatever else. But man, without everybody, without the guy that's putting gas in the Humvee, without the guy that's putting gas and driving that gas in the truck from one base to the next, without the people that are cooking food and doing paperwork and everything else, like none of it happens. But that 2 minutes or 3 minutes on target that, you know, is super glorious, that's all that gets the attention. So I always try and give those folks a shout out and say, without that, it's, you know, none of that other stuff is happening. So
100%.
the reason we were successful on target was because everybody else in that entire chain was successful and great at what they did.
Yeah, Brad, I'll tell you, we had Eversman on this show, and he echoed a lot of the same things that you're saying, and it was about everybody else, right? Just super humble guy. It wasn't about him at all when we were interviewing him. It was about everybody else that he served with, and you know, a common phrase, but it's so true. It's, you know, he goes, "I don't consider myself a hero, but I served with heroes." You know, and I believe that. And look, I got to tell you too, you know, the military has been a major part of my life, and in terms of, I've always had a reverence for it. My wife served, my father served. And, you know, I tell this to my friends and everybody in sport, you don't have to wait for Veterans Day or Remembrance Day or these days to think about it. I think about it every damn day, and how thankful I am that there are people like you and JB, many others, many now with us, that are fighting so that I and many others don't have to worry about it. Greatest quote I think I ever heard from a military member. I remember, and this speaks to right what you were talking about. He came home, he was a combat controller. And I said, how do you do this knowing that so many people just take it for granted? And he said this, he goes, "Man, I do it so they can take it for granted." And that was just such an eye-opening answer to me of, you know, of course that's the, that's the way. But anytime it comes up, I say it, you know, I'm so thankful for all of you. And like you said, the guy filling up the fuel tank, the guy giving out the MREs, all of you, you know, I can't thank you for your volunteer service enough. But
I can't say that.
Yeah.
I can't say, you know, the Rangers and you know, other units in which I served, you know, it's very much a Shark Tank. You know, it's ultra competitive.
Right.
It's, you know, as A-type as you can possibly get, and you know, not always the best communicators, not always, but I feel like while serving, you know, I don't think that we appreciated the people that were doing all the behind the scenes stuff. And I know, you know, another angle from Mogadishu, the 10th Mountain was involved with that. And they got, you want to talk about left out in the cold when it came to Hollywood or anything else, there's been nothing about that.
Nothing about them. You're right.
Yeah,
they fought hard.
Guys too. I can't say that I appreciated what they were doing. I don't even know what they were doing at the time, because I didn't really see stuff. But you know, it's just another example of things where I feel like after the fact, you can look back and you can understand with wisdom and perspective and everything else, and kind of understand the bigger picture of things. At that time, like you're focused on, I'm going and I'm doing this, and me and my girl, this is what we're doing, and that's my role. I don't care about what anybody else is doing. But anyway.
No, look, talk about looking back. So, Brad, we have another show at Bill Mullen's Media called Life After the Military. Again, you're going to be a guest on that in the future. And the whole purpose of that show is to talk about transition out of the military and the stresses and difficulties that come with it and how to overcome them. So, you know, kind of looking back and looking forward, but being present, you're an accomplished musician. And we've said it, Silence and Light is really making a way for itself. Can you discuss how from your transition, you chose to go back to a previous love of yours? And then again, you've kind of merged those two things together into the purpose behind Silence and Light. But again, we talked about it a little bit. I want to know about, you know, once you left the military, how you flew into this. You know what I mean?
For sure. First of all, it was something that never left me, you know. So I, much like one of my bandmates, Jason Everman, who was in both Nirvana and Soundgarden and another band, Mind Funk, before joining the Army Rangers in 1994, you know, kind of left the music thing feeling disgruntled and unsatisfied, and, you know, just kind of like, fuck this, I'm done with this, I'm done with these people, and I need to do something different. I want to make a difference. I want to, all of that stuff. And I probably, it's funny because time is one of those things that I really have a hard time looking back at periods of time. They feel like they were a lot longer than what they actually were. And I've had this conversation with a number of folks, even recently. When I look back at my time, the beginning from when I got to the Ranger Battalion until maybe after Ranger School, and then was kind of established and, you know, getting promoted to sergeant and things like that, it feels like 10 years of my career. Like, it feels like it was that long. It was a blip, man. And we're talking about 18 to 36 months. And, you know, that period of time. And the only thing I can think, not that this is in any way addressing your question, but the only thing that I can think is that, you know, the brain is still in development until you're roughly 27, and it becomes a part of you. So it just feels like it's always a part of you later in life. But anyway, yeah, I know I didn't answer the question.
Oh, listen, I'm enjoying the conversation with the answer.
Yeah.
The question was basically just how you founded the band.
So it never really left me. I was there for what feels like, this is what got me on the sidebar. I feel like I went 18 to 24 months without guitars, without amps, without whatever. And one of the things that ended up happening was I was out with a group of Ranger buddies one night and wasted. And all of a sudden I hear the band, you know, the live band that's playing at the place that we're at, hey, we want Brad to come up to the stage, you know. And I'm like, what? And okay, I go to the stage, and this guy's like, hey, your buddy said that you've always wanted to like get up on a stage and play music, and, you know, you want to jump up here and play a tune with us. And I ended up doing it and crushed it.
That's awesome.
And it definitely was like, the bug rebit me. So within, I don't know, a couple of weeks or whatever, I had already gone out and started buying and acquiring more gear and things like that. So
Wait, how long was it between you playing with that? Like you hadn't played in 18 months or more?
it probably like, it feels like it was
Yeah.
18 months. It was probably 6 months.
That's a lot.
But it feels like it was a long time.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And,
It's incredible. You just went up there and shredded it. That's awesome, man.
so it always stayed with me. Later in my time at Delta, I worked in a little bit different capacity, doing like combat development stuff and inventing and creating new things and new ways of doing stuff and things like that. And it gave me a little more free time. And so ended up jumping in with a band in Fayetteville and took that all the way to the point of, it was all original, but took it to the point of every national act that came through Fayetteville, for the most part, we were opening up for.
Wow.
So we had great shows, or large shows, and got to play on bigger stages and things like that, and played little clubs too and stuff like that. But it was just a ton of fun. So at this point, I'm retiring and I'm accumulating a lot of gear. And one of the rooms in my house is just full. It's not a proper studio, but I've just got all kinds of stuff in there. And my wife and I would go out every Friday night and kind of have some drinks and date night type of thing, but have a couple of cocktails, have some dinner. And every week I would tell her things like, I feel like I'm a ship just out on the ocean looking for the searchlight. Like, show me where to go. Show me what to do. How can I help? How can I? And I knew there were certain things, like, I don't want to ask people for money. I just don't want to ask people for money. So I don't want to start a foundation and then have to fundraise and things like that. And the next week we would have a different conversation. And she might say, like, you should run for office, and it was all these different things, and every week it was something different. And it took a while for me to kind of figure this out. One day she says, it's a shame you're not doing anything with all this music stuff. And it didn't click at the time, but the next day I was driving to meet my bandmate Jason to go see Mastodon in New York City. And the light bulb just went off. And I was like, I'm gonna start something. I'm gonna see if Jason wants to be a part of it. Let's see where it goes, but we can take music royalty monies that we receive from streams and things like that, and we can contribute those to charitable organizations that we believe in that are doing good stuff for the guys and gals that serve. And that's where it came from. So
that's fantastic. Let me ask you this: was there any doubt with the idea, or was it just, I believe in this, we're going to do it?
No, I didn't really have any doubt. A lot of it was just trying to figure out how to get the message out. So within a couple of days of that, I started a social media page and kind of became a little more public about it. And I post one of the first things that I posted that was military was just a shadow box that a buddy of mine for retirement put together for me, and has all my awards in it in like a dress uniform almost. Right. And I posted a picture of that because I wanted people to know that I'm legit. I'm not trying to say I did something. I'm not trying to be spooky about talking about where I worked or anything else. Here's who I am. Here's what I did. Here's what I've lived through. Here's what I'm trying to do. And here's where I want to get. And this is the reason why.
Right.
And so I, started posting some military theme type things just so people could understand that, like, yeah, I'm the real deal. I've lived through a lot of stuff. I've dealt with a lot of stuff. And just for you to know that I am who I say I am.
The reason I asked that question is that when you're in the service, you have a real purpose, a real mission, and you're part of the greatest team on the planet, right? Again, you equate that to sports. It just shows you how important a purpose, a mission, and a team are. And what I find through this other show that we do is, we know that problematic transition is actually the leading cause of veteran suicide. And when you look into that, it's these men and women have lost their mission, their purpose, and their team. And what I admire about you, sir, is that you created that for yourself. And, you did the normal, look, I got to figure it out. I got to find it, but I don't know which way to go. But you found a purpose, you found a mission, and in turn found another team, happened to be the same team members you've been working with before. And I think that that's so important, not just in military. And again, we'll discuss this on that show too. I don't want to merge the two shows completely here, but
Sure.
it's so important in life, much less sports, much less military. We're not meant as people to just walk alone. Even introverts, you're not meant to just do it by yourself. We're meant to work in tribes. We're meant to be together. And I think that with your experience, and JB, you can talk to this too, your experience, your leadership, your passion, you still created a team, you created a mission, you created a passion, and you're succeeding, right?
Yeah.
The point I'm trying to make is that, we miss these pieces. You can be driven, but not have a purpose. And that's actually very dangerous. I know what it's like to be, I've got to do something, but you don't know what. And then you gotta kind of give yourself permission, like be patient. Let me try different things. And I love that you were like politics and then this and then that. And then it's like, that's the one.
Yeah. But you notice, yeah. And he never said what I love. And Brad, I did it too. And it was very difficult. After a military career, you hung your guns up, you never went back to them because it's easy to fall back to take on a contracting job or something else and just make some cash. But he's like, no, I'm going to follow my passion. I'm not really sure what that is, but I'm going to find it. And I did, and you did. And that's that for everybody listening. Follow your passion, get out of your comfort zone. Don't fall back to the old ways. It's simple to do. A lot of military people do it. A lot of athletes do it. They're done playing. What do? Oh, I'll become a broadcaster or a scout or something else because I don't know anything else. Well, open up your brain because you do know a lot of other things and you have a lot of value to give. And that's what I love. I'm so glad you came on the show, Brad, because, you're showing that value to people, and for military people, young military people listening to this too. Like you can do other things.
Right.
It'd be cadets that would, be at West Point, and it'd be like, my father stayed in 30 years. I don't know if I want to. Then don't stay in 30 years.
Right.
I'm like, stay in 5 years. It's okay. Like your father wanted to do it. You don't have to. Like it's okay to do different things. So Brad, I'm going to go into my final question for you, and I'll let Lee wrap it up. But Brad, we talk about leadership and its importance. You've seen it firsthand. You've led it firsthand, whether you're a professional, whether you're a business professional, a coach, an artist, military. For the audience, in simplest terms, how do you define leadership, and what keys can you give people to assist others?
It's interesting because I'll probably not answer your question here again, but I feel like the military, it's got leadership courses built along the way, right? Mm-hmm. So you private to E4, and then we're going to start teaching you how to be a leader. The Rangers, motto is lead the way, lead by example. And really that's the only thing I can think of. I think there are two things with leadership. One, you got to lead by example. You have to be the example for the guys to look at and say, I want to be like him. I want to emulate this guy, etc. So the second part of that is people are either natural leaders or they're not. And I have been on teams where I'm not the team leader, but I'm the leader. And I don't say that to say I'm some great natural leader. I have a personality that people can come and they can talk to me if there's a problem. I've got a sympathetic ear for things. I try and look at situations and not be judgmental. And, hey, if you need to talk to me about something, we can talk about it. Or if it's something that we don't want to set somebody on, whatever it might be. But I know, I have been in situations where, there have been times where even though I'm not the guy in charge, I'm kind of helping running the show. And I don't think that that's something that you can teach. I think you either have it, you're a magnetic person and you have a chemistry that people want to be around. So the point about military schooling is leaving the Rangers to go to a school for 5 weeks or whatever it might have been. They called them like Ranger appreciation courses, right? Because now you're out in the regular Army and you're dealing with people that are driven much differently than you are. And it's not a fun assignment, and you're doing a lot of things that you don't want to be doing. So nobody wants to go to these things. I can't say that I paid a whole lot of attention. I don't think that they were good courses. I don't think that I learned anything about leadership from going to those courses. I feel like I emulated the guys that I looked up to that had jumped into Panama, that were team leaders and young, aggressive E4s, E5s, E6s. And those were the guys that I wanted to be like. They were my heroes. They're still my heroes. Even if I've deployed 1,000 more hours or days than they ever did, it doesn't matter. Like, that's who I look up to still. And, you know, that's the only thing I can say about that, is I feel like you have to be an example. As a subordinate, you have to look for a quality that you want to try and emulate. And then there's a natural leadership ability, or there's not. And I don't think that that's something that can be learned.
No, and I love it because, you know, I mumbled there when you were talking, but it's authentic. It's an authentic leadership. You know, we talk about that as a leader, and I think you were very authentic. You were tolerant, and so people can look to that, because that's what leadership's about. You know, me going through, you know, like you going through every single one of these military leadership courses. I think what you do learn there is you do meet people outside of your bubble, which I think for me was the most important. And I remember a couple of courses I went to, and I thought I was the kind of the big shit. You know, I had a combat scroll already, jump start, the whole thing. All of a sudden I went to a course and I'm like, man, this dude's sharp and he doesn't have anything on his uniform. Yeah. So I think for me, it gave me the fact that I was like, okay, there are other people that maybe weren't in the regiment that are still pretty good dudes. Maybe I should listen a little bit. So that's the part that helped me. But you're right, the course itself. Thank you for that, Brad. I loved your answer. It's so appreciative.
I did a special forces. So I went to the Q course and, you know, changed my MOS from 11 from infantry series to 18 series, and it wasn't necessarily by choice, but I did it. And it helped me with re-enlistment bonuses and things like that. And then I switched back to 11 series to get promoted. And so I got promoted very quickly. But I remember going to the special forces course, leadership course, and telling them that I was going to cut the special off my tab because there was nothing special about them. They had it out for me because I was the Delta Force guy.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah.
They treated me differently. I won the PT award, had the highest GPA. Like, I crushed their course, and that's the way to respond to it. You know what I mean? Not
totally agree.
So you can, hey man, you can try and take me down. I'm going to show you your course is a joke.
Yeah.
And I and
that was
come across the finish line first, and they'd be like, oh yeah, of course. You know.
I love it. I love it. I just tell you a quick story, Brad. You'll get a kick out of this. So will you, Lee? So I was in the regiment, staff sergeant, and Sergeant Major LG, the Leon Guerrero, one of the most famous regimental sergeant majors. He called me and he's like, hey, I think you should go be a drill instructor for 2 years. I'm like, what am I going to learn there? He's like, you'll learn things that we can't teach you here. And I was like, okay. So next thing he calls me, he says, hey, the course starts this day, show up. So I show up and they're doing in processing, and they go through the whole alphabetical order. They pass the letter S, they go all the way to Z. And I'm just standing there by myself. They're like, what's your name? I'm like, Spizo. They're like, oh, you're the one. You know, because the RSM called over and said, I'm sending a guy to go to school. Like, and that was the same thing. Like, oh, you're the one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just had to try to, I just tried to win everything. Just win everything. So that's the only way you do it.
You know, guys, I'll tell you too. A good friend of JB and I is Howie Cohen, who hosts Life After the Military with me. And he always says this, going back to what you said, Brad, is that he always viewed life through a leadership lens. And that goes back to what you were saying about, you know, you have it or you don't. You know, one of my leadership stories is to kind of equating this to sports. I became a head coach and a GM at 22, which was insanely young. And I had a lot to learn. You know, I did a good job. I was a leader, but it was funny because years later, and this goes back to some of the stories you told, kind of becoming an egoless leader, right? Because I had a little bit of an ego after, you know, being a head coach for such a long time at a young age. I had more experience. And I realized, like, I need to learn how to be led. I need to be led as well as being a leader. This is in my opinion, a mistake a lot of leaders make, is that you need to, if you want to be a great leader, learn how to be led, because now you'll know the nuances of that as well. And, I volunteered to become an assistant coach of all things, and it might've been one of the greatest decisions I've ever made in my life, because not only did I learn more about myself, but I understand what it is to support a head coach and appreciate all those little tiny things. And where I want to bring this into, because you told that story about you might not have been the leader, but you were the leader. In a real team environment, everyone has to lead in some form, even if it's by being a great follower, right?
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things we don't talk about enough is that, and again, there's a lot of different definitions for the word follower. Okay. Sacrificing yourself and just doing what someone tells you all the time, that's not the best use of your time. But understanding how to support a leader and support a teammate is actually a very valuable skill if you don't want to be the leader, right? That's leadership in its own way. So you alluded to this. Being in a band is like being married to 3 other dudes or more, right? How do you equate this to your music, to your band? Again, it's an all veteran band. So I'm guessing there's some understanding here of being in a unit together,
Sure.
right? Creating music. And this is a question I'm kind of asking this for sports teams, but also even other musicians out there that might be listening to this, of how you're succeeding as a band and how you function as a band, because that's not an easy life either, right? There's a lot of moving parts to that.
Well, I think it starts with having a shared goal. And if we can all agree to, this is what we want to do, this is where we all want to be, then there's no way we can, get through this together, because then this guy's schedule starts cramping what I want to be able to do or what 2 other guys want to be able to do. And it just, the second is communication, and just being as transparent about things as humanly possible. We recently were kind of auditioning a guy, and we all have other stuff going on, so sometimes schedules conflict, and we want to be able to have a couple of stand-in people that can jump in and help out, and that way we don't have to say no to something that may be very lucrative, right? And you learn that in the military too, right? Always having an alternate plan and something in case things go wrong. But
Exactly.
he was a really junior guy, and we weren't looking for somebody that, like, you have to be in the military to be a stand-in or to help us out or fill in on a show or whatever. Wasn't even the case. It just kind of naturally came to be. But was a very junior guy, and it was almost like awestruck being around. And I feel like a douche for even saying, like, hanging around with people at our level. And I don't mean it in a way that I'm elevated or better. Or
I got you. No, I got you.
It was almost like, man, you guys were like special ops, and that guy was, and he was, like a special, got out as a corporal or something like that. And it was just, afterwards, we all got together and was like, we need somebody more senior. Like, if it's going to be a military person, it has to be either a really mature guy. You communicate differently when you're, 30 than you do when you're 45, and you do when you're 20, and, wisdom and everything else. But anyway, the point is, I think you got to have a common goal. And if you can at least have that, then that's a start point that you can build upon. And okay, well, what are you going to do? The other is, being able to delegate and not being a control person. I write all the music. Everybody contributes to the music. Fred writes all the lyrics. Sometimes we bounce stuff off of, one another, like, hey, maybe we should try this. But similarly, like, these guys are great subordinates in that they're not challenging everything. Like, well, why don't we do that 4 times? Why don't we do,
Right.
And it's, hey, we like this. It sounds good. Let's build upon it and make it better, not shoot holes in it all day long so that whatever.
The lack of ego. That's what
So
that is.
we don't have 10 chiefs,
Right.
and it works, and everybody's good about that. If somebody else comes in and they've got a great song, like, have at it. I'm not an ego guy that's got to be like, no, I'm the only one that, I don't feel that way at all. And we all contribute and we all put our part in. And that's, like, we didn't start this to be a heavy grunge kind of band. That was never the intent. I didn't even come up with I know the music that I like. I know the music that I like to play. I'm influenced by certain people from certain genres, and that kind of goes across the board with a bunch of different kind of music. But when we all collectively put our parts together and play the things that we like to play, the way we like to play it, it has a sound. And, you know, again, we didn't intend that. It wasn't like, hey, let's write a song that sounds like Alice in Chains.
Right.
Let's write a song that sounds like Nirvana. Let's write, you know, that's never the intent. It's just, here's a cool guitar riff. You guys dig it? Okay, cool. Let's try this on the drums. And then it all comes together and it is what it is. But
yeah,
so.
You make a sound, you create a sound that sounds like you. And here's what I'm going to comment on that with sports, man, is that, you know, I'll go work with sports teams and I'll say, oh, what's our goal? And, you know, JB, I've told you this story. Our goal is to win. Like, no, that's everyone's
no kidding,
goal.
right?
Yeah, everyone's goal is to
Right.
win. What is it about you? And based on what you said, man, what is the sound, right, Brad, that you're going to make? What's that sound that you're going to make, right? That makes you different than the other teams that want to win. Everybody wants to win. And that's the thing that kills me at the end of the day, is that sports teams need to understand that, bands need to understand that. It's not about copying or anything. It's who are you and why do you want to pursue this goal as a group? That's something you need to know if you want winning to be possible. So, Brad, last question for me.
Wait, that was like 4 questions.
Go ahead. Huh?
No, that was like your last question was like 4 questions ago.
No, that was
Exactly.
JB. That was
This is what he
JB's
does
last
to me.
question. No, that was your last question,
Oh,
JB.
okay, you're
This
right.
is my last question. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll jump
That's
off. But you know, look, the show's all about mental fitness, mental toughness, and we all deal with it at different times in varying degrees. Sometimes feeling very confident, sometimes not feeling confident at all. I just want to know what your kind of definition of mental fitness is, and then how you practice that on a daily basis.
Interesting. I was, you know, before I had this incident happen last night, it kind of took me down today a little bit. I was supposed to give a talk, a 15-minute talk later this afternoon about fitness. And one of the things that they asked me to talk about was fitness while being deployed. And it was a guideline. It wasn't, you've got to talk about this for 15 minutes. One of the things that I felt like needed to be discussed was the mental component of physical fitness. I have been in many situations where the gas is like, the tank is empty, man. I'm out of gas. There is nothing left to give. And the brain kicks in and takes over. And you're almost like in the Delta Force selection briefing, they even say that we're confident by the time you reach this point in the selection course, you will be running off of guts alone. And everybody hits that point. And it literally was something. So interestingly, after I completed the course, physically, and was waiting to go to the board and things like that at the end, I was having trouble sleeping. And I would wake up, it seemed like every 15, 20 minutes or something. It was like, keep going, keep going. And it wasn't, I couldn't help it. I couldn't turn it off. My brain had taken over and said, you know, keep going. You got to keep walking, got to keep doing this, keep moving, keep going. And it took a couple of days for me to kind of come down off that. So that goes into, you know, mental toughness, which is something I feel like you can train yourself for. I know I still run. I love running. It's my metric, you know, kind of how I keep a gauge of myself of, you know, if I'm putting on weight, if I'm not putting on weight, how I'm eating, how I feel, how my clothes fit, all of that stuff kind of relates into it. But I love running. I intentionally mind fuck myself when I go out and do activity. And first of all, I can't run in the neighborhood because if I see anybody else, I'm going to run faster than that guy. I've got to catch him and I've got to pass him. And I've actually hurt myself doing it. So I put myself in my own little bubble in my own world. And at some point, you know, I'll say, I'm gonna run about 3.5 today and I'm gonna take it easy and I'm gonna run at this pace and it's kind of loosen up day or whatever. And then I get like 3 miles in and I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna go at this speed and I'm gonna do it for this long. And then I'm gonna do wind sprints. And then and I continue to like, nope, you can't stop where you said you're going to stop. You're going to keep going. And so I try and do something to challenge myself that kind of keeps that thing going. I notice with age, I also too, like some days I'll look out the window and I'll be like, yeah, it's sprinkling. Nah, I'm gonna go watch some news and drink a little more coffee, and it's, I've done a
You
little
don't
bit.
David Goggins it.
Yeah, I know who he is, but I'm not familiar with him. I just know that he's like ultra fit,
Yeah, he's a freak.
Listen, Lee and these Navy SEALs, Brad, are driving me insane.
That's why I brought it up, JB.
He does it. He does it to just zing me.
No,
Well,
hey, Brad, that was not to not prove your point. I'm just like that as well. But no,
one of the other things that I was going to talk about later today was, how do you judge and rate your fitness? Is it you look in the mirror and you see a six-pack? Is it I can do this much or this many? All of the fitness that I did in the military, and once I got to Delta, so I was there for 12 years, but once I got there, it's kind of big boy rules. You do whatever, as long as you're not the weak guy on the team. You don't want to be the guy that's slowing anybody down. So it was big boy rules. I had a partner, and he and I did a lot of lifting and a lot of physical activity together and things like that. But, everything that I do, I want to do it so that it applies to something real. And I tried to teach this to my younger son, who would go to the weight room for football and squat a tremendous amount of weight and do things like that. Like, how does that make you tackle somebody better? When then you're asking me to open a jar for you. Like, hey, how about grip strength? Like, you're tackling dudes playing middle linebacker. You need grip strength. You need to be able to grab a dude, hold on, and pull him down. So what can you do? It doesn't matter how much you push. It doesn't matter that you got jacked arms, or, you can see all the veins in your arm. It doesn't matter. Like, you have to correlate that to something that's tangible that you're actually going to do. So I could climb ropes all day. I could do pull-ups. I can do dips. I can hop over walls. I can do things like that. And that's kind of how I correlated my fitness in the military. Was I want to be able to make sure that I can do all the stuff that's going to be physically asked of me to accomplish in order to, be successful.
I love it. You said earlier in this, you have your metric, right? To echo what you said, like that's a great way of looking at this. Like, and you just said that, like, you got to figure out what that is. Is that looking great, or is it performance? Or, and I think you'd agree. I mean, it could change per person, right? It could be a lot of different things, but it's like we talked about a minute ago with like knowing your purpose, like know your metric, right? Is it just to hit the scale at a certain number, or do you want to feel a certain way, right? I think that's a big part of it, and not to dive into the societal norms of what society's metrics are for success, but what you want. And I think that just rounding out this whole episode, Brad, you've done that. You've done that in the military, you've done that in music, you've done that in life, and I think it's fantastic. So I got to tell the people again, check out the band Silence and Light. Just search them, you'll find them. The music's great. It's on Apple. It's everywhere. Again, all the royalties go towards military charities, and it's an incredible mission and purpose that you've created with your bandmates there, man. And I just want to thank you for your service, and thank you for all you're doing for veterans today.
Well, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, but also, thanks for having a platform that's, helping guys like me get the word out, and also for doing what you're doing, because you're an example to other guys that are, looking for that thing that they want to do, where they're going to find purpose. So thanks for having me, and also thanks for what you do.
Thank you, sir.
Brad,
I appreciate it.
You're the best, bud. But you really are. So thank you so much, and keep kicking ass, bud. This is awesome. Awesome what you're doing. I'm so proud of you.
You guys too.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Win Championship Trades for Life. Again, we're powered by Pivotal Moments Media. Check us out at pivotalmomentsmedia.com. Click on the Grit channel if you want more inspirational, entertaining, and educational content, world of sports. For Brad Thomas and JB Spizzo, I'm Lee Elias. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you in the next episode of Win. Have a great day, everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks so much for listening to this edition of Win Championship Trades for Life. If you like what you heard, go ahead and hit that subscribe button or that like button wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, pivotalmomentsmedia.com. And remember, Win is part of Grit, a Pivotal Moments Media channel, which is working to break the stigma surrounding mental fitness in sports. Again, visit pivotalmomentsmedia.com for more episodes, content, and education on how we can tackle that challenge together. Keep climbing, and we'll see you on the next episode.